Calendula has spent centuries being grown, eaten, dyed, infused, and reached for in preparations. And then modern skincare does what it does. It grabbed that entire history and crushed it into two words: skin healing. And then started acting like every oil infusion, extract, study, all of it just means the same thing. And it doesn't. Calendula is one of my favorite flowers to work with. It's accessible, practical, and honestly, it's one of the easiest herbs to invite into your apothecary on the bench. So that's exactly why we don't need to inflate the claims or make stuff up, because the real story is so much better. So how did this little orange flower earn its place? What did the science actually find when it started testing that reputation? And what changes the herbal tradition when that now becomes a cosmetic product? So same plant, different preparation, different evidence, different language. So let's rut in. Chapter 1. So how calendula earned its place? Who were we even talking about to begin with? The Calendula officinalis in the Astraceae family. Marigold is something that it's also known by, but not every marigold is calendula. Tangents or something is a different genus. And this is where things can sometimes get messy because botanical names really matter. This is the calendula that I'm talking about. When I'm talking about calendula, I am talking about Calendula officinalis. That is also sometimes called marigold. So where does it come from? It is broadly associated with the Mediterranean and herbal traditions. The Q place they put it, they originated in Western Mediterranean areas, specifically native to Spain. But at this point, it's been cultivated so widely that it grows across large parts of Europe and all over the world, many regions of the world. So it's a long established garden and useful plant. So for me, again, anecdotally, it's one of my favorite flowers to work with, and I use it for everything. It's easy to recognize. It's so easy to dry. You can put it into all different kinds of preparations, and it's really accessible, other than being like precious. So you don't have to worry about wasting it. It does not make you fight for your life to figure out what to do with it. It's an open book. Bell's Bookshop. But even the name carries the story. Calendula, its Latin name is connected to Calidae. The Calidaes mark the beginning of the month. The official name has been historically connected to its long repeated flowering over the months. So officinalis appears in names of many historically medicinal and useful plants. So the epithets in the plant name tell you a lot of the story. And this is one of my favorite things about botanical names, is because sometimes the history of the plant is just sitting right there in the name itself. So we are talking exactly about the flower itself. So I can't, of course, find a head. Here we go. So it's actually there's a central disc, and they're all falling off and stuck to my finger. So it's technically a flower head, and then the outer like ray florets, and then the central disc of florets, like very much like all the other kind of daisies and stuff. So this would be the whole flower that we're talking about, and the little florets. So for the purpose, the important thing that we're talking about is the flowering material, not the whole aerial parts of the plant, not just vaguely whatever. So historically, it's been used in medical preparations. It's been used culinarily. It's been used for food coloring. It's been used as a saffron substitute, fabric or dye, a garden ornament, a house plant. Calendula has been used in every corner of life. So the big idea here is that calendula wasn't necessarily some exotic medicinal plant hidden away in some apothecary somewhere. It was useful and available to everyone. It could move between the garden, the kitchen, the household, and into herbal practice. So I think that's why part of some of the plants have survived for centuries. They aren't just medicinal plants. They're actually useful plants. So there's been strong documented in the herbal record, and early modern writers discussed calendula for a lot of things. William Turner wrote about it in the 1500s. My chair won't stop cracking. Nicholas Culpeper later included marigold and calendula in his traditional practices. John Coles wrote about it in the 1600s. Historic indications were super broad, and we don't need to pretend that every historical indication is clinically supported today, and that's okay. We have to be careful because sweeping claims like the ancient Greeks used Calendula officinalis. The ancient plant identification is not always like super clean and easy, and the Wellcome historical record specifically notes that the yellow flowered plant associated with the Dioscides guy or whoever doesn't appear to be the same species as the modern calendula that we have now. And that's why we don't need to manufacture perfectly uninterrupted 2,000-year-old lineage to make it historically relevant and now presently useful. So when people historically talk about calendula, that's a history statement. That's not a statement that is, like, could be necessarily supported by modern evidence. So calendula became such a big part of the story because of her use. People have used it in washes, ointments, salves, preparations, infused preparations, things for irritated, damaged skin, minor wound, and skin inflammation. They became a persistent part of the tradition. And modern traditional use still recognizes that. The European Medicines Agencies, the EMA, has a connection with calendula for their medicinal framework in their library. So in adding or aiding the healing of wounds. Now, this does not mean that the EMA has proved calendula heals wounds. This is a traditional use medicinal framework based on longstanding use. So the skin is one of the places that calendula has built its reputation, and it's one of the places that the reputation survived especially well, even to now. I mean, I use it on my skin. So the reason why people keep using it is because it's accessible, it's easy to cultivate, long flowering period, it's recognizable and useful beyond medicine. It's easy to prepare in so many different ways. It fits household herbal practice. Again, it could go from garden to kitchen to household medicine to apothecary, like hardcore. So I don't think calendula survived because somebody made a really good marketing claim 2,000 years ago. I think it survived because people found it useful enough to keep growing it, keep preparing it, and passing it along long before they were paid to do so. So tradition matters, but it isn't the end of the question. So calendula clearly has earned its place. The next question is what happened when researchers start testing some of that reputation and what people have been saying about it. Chapter 2. What happened when science actually looked at it? Science doesn't give us a clear yes or no. And the internet's like, does calendula heal skin? And the actual question is, which calendula preparation? Used how? On whom? For what outcome? Because studies can differ, of course. Preparation, concentration, population, outcome, comparison group, study design, quality, all these things matter. And unfortunately for the algorithm, science does not work in one word answers, because why would it be simple? So what did the researchers actually look at? Wound healing, inflammatory processes, antioxidant activity, skin injury and damage, radiation associated dermatitis, and other skin stuff. But here's the thing. Evidence is different, right? Lab research is what happens under controlled experimental conditions. Animal and preclinical research is what happens in a living biological model. And human clinical research is what happens when actual people use a particular preparation for a particular outcome. Those are not interchangeable levels of evidence. A laboratory result does not automatically become a human treatment claim. Human research exists, but of course it's a mixed bag. There are human clinical trials. Some findings have been super encouraging. Some radiation dermatitis research has shown benefit. Other trials failed to show the same advantage. So systematic reviews have described the clinical evidence as limited and consistent and just want better trials. They call for better trials. So an earlier trial, 2004 randomized phase 3 trial published in PubMed compared a topical calendula preparation with tourmaline during breast cancer radiation therapy and reported less 2 or higher like acute dermatitis in that group. A later trial comparing calendula with sorbitol found no detectable difference in grade 2 or higher radiation dermatitis, and the authors noted limitations in the study itself. So that is not science contradicting itself. That's science just giving us more information. Mixed evidence isn't a failure. It doesn't mean calendula is useless, and it doesn't mean centuries of traditional use have all of a sudden become meaningless. It just means that we have to narrow the claim down on calendula. We've just become more precise. We stop saying calendula heals the skin as though that's one giant scientifically established fact or condition. Mixed evidence doesn't make the plant less valuable. It makes our language need to be more specific. Also, preparation matters. This is the bridge for everything. Calendula is not one universalized standard substance. Research may use a standardized extract or a specific concentration, a specific vehicle, a specific application method. That doesn't automatically isn't equivalent to a homemade calendula infused oil or a water extract or a glycerin extract, dried flower powder, calendula floating around in soap, every commercial cosmetic extract available. Saying calendula was studied is completely incomplete. What preparation was studied and for what purpose? That is the distinction that becomes really important when calendula leaves an herbal preparation and becomes a cosmetic ingredient. Chapter 3. And then somebody puts it in a jar. So this is what changes when a medicinally familiar plant becomes an ingredient in a cosmetic product. What does calendula realistically mean inside of that formula? It's the same plant, but it's not necessarily the same ingredient. Okay? This is calendula. This is also calendula. This may also be calendula. It is. This is also calendula. So these are not all automatically the equivalent ingredient. A calendula infused oil, a plant material extracted into oil, is useful as an anhydrogenous formula. Body oils, balm type products, similar oil-based formulas, extractions. Somebody's calling me. Extractions and like what those constituents that come along for the ride in oil, but not every oil produces the same type of concentration. So commercial calendula extract could involve water, glycerin, another solvent system completely, standardized extract, a supplier-specific process. What I need to know when I'm looking at it is what's the actual INCI, extraction system, recommended use rate, supplier specifications, formulation compatibility, processing instructions. A calendula extract is the beginning of the ingredient conversation, not the end of it. So back to like dried calendula, it can be powdered or it can be whole. Powdered is common in soap and but visuals, but the presence of it doesn't automatically mean it's extracted into that formulation in any kind of meaningful way. And pretty plant pieces are not performance pieces. A plant being visible in the product isn't evidence of what the plant is doing in the product, is what the point I'm trying to make, I guess. So the botanical name doesn't tell me, you, me, we, anything about the plant. It tells me who the plant is, but it doesn't tell me all of those methods. A botanical name tells me the plant that we're talking about. It doesn't tell me everything I need to know about the ingredient. So the big tie-in of all three of these things together is calendula preparations have recognized medicinal context and use. They have research context also. Specific preparations have been studied for wound healing and other dermatological stuff. Calendula officinalis appears in the European Commission's base around skin function. Same plant, different context, different evidence, different language. And this is where the internet and all kinds of marketing claims get messy. In the US, intended use matters. Cosmetics are intended for purposes such as cleansing, beautify, promoting attractiveness, or altering the appearance. They are not to prevent disease or establish any kind of drug intended use. Claims affecting the structure or the function of the body can also establish drug intended use. Medicinal history of an ingredient does not automatically become a claim language for a cosmetic. So is it a cosmetic? Is it a drug? Or is it both? Cosmetic type language is skin conditioning. Helps soften the feel of the skin. Helps skin feel comfortable. Botanically infused body care. Formulated with calendula infused oil. Therapeutic drug type language is heals wounds, treats eczema, treats dermatitis, anti-inflammatory treatment, treats burns, treats infection. You see the think treat is the word there. Real world FDA compliance example here. In 2017, the FDA issued a warning letter to Be Natural Organics. One of the products specifically named was calendula cream soap. The company used marketing language describing calendula as things like antiseptic, anti-inflammatory, immune stimulating, suitable for treating dermatitis such as eczema. Elsewhere on the site, calendula language also referenced like calendula or skin healing, cell regeneration, eczema, psoriasis, diaper rash, acne, burns. The FDA nailed them. They were like, all of these are intended use drug, like as a drug claim. What are you doing? They sent them a letter. They were like, get this down. And the plant did not become illegal. The language around it did. So all of these things matter because tradition asks, why did people keep using the plant? Research asks, what happens when we test a particular preparation for a particular outcome? And formulators ask, what ingredient do I actually have and what does it realistically contribute to this formula? Compliance asks, what can I truthfully and legally communicate about this finished product? Those are the 4 different questions, and we get into trouble when we answer all 4 with the same answer. Calendula is great for the skin. We gotta do better. We gotta broaden that out a little bit more and be specific. So if there's one thing I want you to walk away with from this whole rambling that I'm doing, I'm trying to find a nice format. I don't know. Precision doesn't always take away from calendula. It gives the story, it gives the plant its story back. And we can have traditional use without pretending that traditional is a clinical trial. We can have research without pretending one standardized extract represents every oil, powder, infusion, or cosmetic ingredient. And we can formulate with the plant without borrowing medicinal claims that don't belong in the finished product. And that's the bridge. Those are the threads I'm trying to braid together. It belongs in the garden. It belongs in better research. It belongs in the formula, but they don't all get to say the same thing. Calendula doesn't need a miracle story. The story that she has already lasted for centuries. And that's what I mean when I say that we need to love the plant enough to be precise. Did you see that? Be precise with it. Anyway, I'll put all my sources below so you can read all the evidence yourself. That's enough rambling, I guess, for now. And I'll try to find a better format for these videos, and I'll see you in the next one.